everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be talking about how I review books. This is going to be the whole long process from start to end. So first things first, I open a new note on the Notes app on my phone or my laptop. I normally do it on my laptop because I have so many notes open on my Notes app that it doesn't always transfer over between my phone to my laptop, and so I generally prefer to do the little notes on my laptop. And these notes are going to be based off of big things. They're not going to be things like on page 57 there was a typo. Like, no, that's not the type of thing that I'm going to be commenting on unless I see a repeated pattern of these like small mistakes. The things that I for sure always make sure that I want to comment on is characters, whether they're likable, whether I can keep track of them all, because sometimes there's such a wide range of characters that I can't keep track of them all, and I feel like that's a valid criticism of a book. I make notes on how cheesy a book is. If I find a book to be super cheesy and the book wasn't meant to be cheesy, then that is definitely going to be something that I comment on. I make a comment on pacing. I prefer fast-paced books or medium-paced books. However, sometimes books are way too slow and I comment on that. And if the pacing is really good, then I comment on that as well. So for every bullet point that I touch on, there's sort of like a pro or a con to it, and I'm just giving my thoughts whether I feel like it's a pro to the book or a con to the book. And I also 100% make sure to mark every trigger warning and content warning that I see. If you need any advice on what trigger warnings and content warnings to mark, I'll be leaving a list down in the description of ones that I think should be marked. Now, once I post my actual review, normally the trigger warnings and content warnings I post on Goodreads. I don't always post them on Instagram. And when I post them on Goodreads, I do a spoiler tag, which you do the sideways triangle, then you write spoiler, and then another sideways triangle. You write in each of the different trigger warnings or content warnings, and then you do the same thing, except for in front of the word spoiler, you do a dash like that. I just do that because some people think that trigger warnings can be spoilers, and occasionally a trigger warning will be a big spoiler. For example, if there's a big triggering event that they wanted to be the main plot twist of the book, which I am always not a huge fan when books do that, but I do go ahead and hide it under that spoiler tag so that if people don't want to see the spoiler, they don't have to see the spoiler. And I'm doing this throughout the whole time that I'm reading the book. I know that this sounds like it takes a long time, but it really doesn't, because when I'm reading a book on my phone, I'm taking screenshots of these moments, or if I'm reading a physical book, then I'm taking pictures of it. If I'm reading it on my Kindle, I either highlight it or I take a picture of it with my phone. And then after the fact, in the night after I finished reading for the day, then I go in and turn them into bullet points in my Notes app. Now this doesn't take very long. This bullet point process that I have, and like taking the pictures or taking the highlighted parts and turning it into bullet points, I do that then of every night. It takes like 2 minutes, maybe less. Now after I finish the book and before I start writing my review, I settle on how I'm going to rate the book. A lot of people have these different statistics that they look at, like, oh, I gave like pacing this many stars, plot that many stars. That's a valid way of doing it. You have to find your own way to sort of give a star rating to a book, but for me, I rate it based off of enjoyment level. So even a 5-star book I could have lots of criticisms of, but if I generally enjoyed it, then I make sure to give it 5 stars. So 5 stars to me is I loved it. It was amazing. It could be a new favorite for me. 4 stars is I really liked it. Like, it was really good, and I'll definitely be talking about it a lot and recommending it to a lot of people. 3 stars is where it gets a little more complicated. 3 stars could either mean that I liked it, that I generally found it enjoyable, and that I may recommend it in certain circumstances, but 3 stars could also mean that it's just okay, and I make sure to clarify which one of those it is in my review. Now, if it were up to me, I would love it if Goodreads would add half stars, because then it would make the rating process so much easier, but they don't do that. So as of right now, my reviews are all out of 5 stars, and very rarely do they ever contain half stars because Goodreads does not allow that. 2 stars means that I didn't really like it, but like it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I didn't hate it. And 1 star means that I hate it. So my rating system means that I don't give out too many 5 stars and I don't give out too many 1 stars. I just find that this is what works best for me. I find that I get more out of reading when I am both criticizing and enjoying the books that I'm reading, so that's why I don't always give them 1 stars and don't always give them 5 stars. After I decide that, then I start writing my review. I start with the trigger warnings and content warnings with the spoiler tag, as I told you. Depending on how much content I have to cover in my review, I occasionally describe what the book's about. If it's a sequel, I don't recommend describing what the book's about, because sometimes if you do that, it will leave spoilers. And then I make sure that my last paragraph is like an overall summary of my thoughts on the book. And then from the trigger warnings to my overall summary, I take all the bullet points that I had and I turn them into well-written paragraphs. And if there's any bullet points that I'm like, oh, they can be condensed into 1 paragraph, I feel free to do that. I read my review at least 3 times before I post it anywhere. I am a perfectionist when it comes to writing reviews. I hate looking back at my old reviews and seeing different typos, and so I make sure I read them 3 times. I make sure that I check for any spelling errors in the Notes app, and then I also make sure that I check for any spelling errors once I copy and paste it over into Goodreads. Now, Goodreads is the place for my long reviews, my detailed reviews. If you want to know 100% my thoughts on books, then Goodreads is the place to go. However, if you go on over to Instagram, Instagram has a different character count for their posts than Goodreads. So on Goodreads, you can get away with these long posts. On Instagram, they're like, no, your caption's too long. So then what I have to do is I have to look at my review and say, these are the most important paragraphs. And I go, I'm gonna have to take out some of these other less important paragraphs. So for example, if my review is 5 paragraphs and it's introduction, characters, pacing, plot, and a summary, what I will do is I will first of all see, well, maybe I can combine pacing and plot into 1 paragraph, or maybe my pacing paragraph is stronger, plot paragraph is not as strong. So then I might take one of those out, and that gives me 4. And then I look and I go, well, introduction and my summary of the thoughts are sort of stating the same thing, so say I'll cut that conclusion. So then I have 3 paragraphs. If those are still too long, then I will go through each one individually and try and find any words that I can cut out until the review is small enough that it fits into Instagram's character count. And I do this by just copying my review and pasting it on the Instagram caption with the photo that I have of the book. It's also worth noting that when it comes to taking pictures for Bookstagram and putting your reviews on there, you had to figure out your own style for it. I personally find that I just take a book with whatever background I find is pretty and matches the book. I do sometimes simple edits. I always mess with the contrast and the brightness. I personally like to turn down the brightness but turn up the contrast, and I like how the colors change with that. Occasionally I add a little other fancy features in, which is because I have experience with working with Photoshop and different apps like that. And I'll do a little screen recording of what I do if I write a book as an ebook. But essentially what I do is I find a cover of the book online, I save that to my phone, and then I crop it so it's a square. I blur that, and then I add the cover of the book onto that blurred out squared version of the cover, and I add a little bit of a shadow to it. It makes it like pop, and it makes it so that it's more interesting to look at than just a plain cover that you just got off of the internet. The only other thing I have to mention about my reviews is that if I'm posting a review on Bookstagram, I am not going to take the author if there's any criticisms whatsoever of the book. I see no need to take authors in reviews unless your review is 100% positive. I don't want any author to be notified that I've tagged them in the photo, to look at the photo, and then to read a brutal review. Like, authors work with editors and other people in their writing team to perfect the book, and the reviews that come out after the book comes out is not for the author to go like, oh, this is how I can improve my book, because it's already published. It's more for reviewers to let each other know what they thought of the book and to possibly give publishers an idea of whether they should hire these authors more to write more books. So that was basically how I write my reviews. I hope that you found this video enjoyable and informative. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. All of my social media will be linked down in the description below. I upload videos twice a week, so my next video will be uploaded this Friday. I hope all of you will stick around to watch that one, and until next time, goodbye. Oh, I almost forgot. Sorry, one last thing before I actually say goodbye, which is that I don't do full reviews for short mangas and graphic novels. This is because they are so short that I read a lot of them in 20 to 45 minutes, and I feel like that's not enough content to write a full fleshed out review. So I just do short, quick little thoughts on that. And plus, when people are reading a manga series, they're not going to care what your thoughts on each volume are. They're going to care what your thoughts on the entire series are. So that's what I do for manga. It's okay if you do it differently. And now I'm actually saying goodbye. Bye.